Hey, Lions Nation! We're back with another exclusive video bringing you all the latest news about our beloved Detroit Lions. Before we get started, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you never miss anything about the team. Now, let's get into the news. No one slept in Detroit the night the world shifted. It wasn't the kind of news that lands gently, or even the kind that spreads through cautious whispers. It struck like lightning, instant, violent, undeniable. At exactly 9:12 p.m., ESPN detonated the alert that would rip the NFL apart at its seams. Superstar M. Ford Field. Justin Jefferson Chega para incendiario attacked DOS Detroit Lions for a moment. The entire league froze. Screens lit up in living rooms, bars, highway rest stops, gas stations, airport lounges. Air seemed to stop moving. Analysts blinked at their monitors in disbelief, stumbling over their words as if the trade had knocked the breath out of them. Justin Jefferson, the human highlight reel, the route running to me God. The man who turned defensive backs into confetti was joining the Detroit Lions, not rumored, not speculated, not considered, confirmed, and the reality of that confirmation didn't settle. It detonated. Ford Field didn't wait for morning. Within minutes of the news, hundreds, then thousands of fans flooded the streets around the stadium, chanting, screaming, some crying, some simply trembling with the kind of adrenaline overdose normally reserved for championship parades, because they understood something that the rest of the league wasn't ready to accept. Detroit hadn't just added a piece, they had summoned an apex predator, a player whose very presence on the field warped defensive geometry. Safeties didn't backpedal against Jefferson, they retreated. Corners didn't guard him, they prayed. Linebackers didn't help in coverage, they sank into dread, knowing they were too slow, too stiff, too mortal to keep up with the boom and fade violence of his cuts. But it wasn't the highlight tapes that scared people. It wasn't even the numbers. It was the psychology. Jefferson didn't play football. He hunted. He tracked weaknesses, stalked blind spots, and tore through coverage shells with the precision of a surgeon and the aggression of a blade. And now he wasn't doing that for Minnesota. He wasn't doing it for a stable, comfortable franchise. He was doing it for Detroit, for a team that had weaponized emotion, for a coach who breathed competitive rage like oxygen, for a fan base that demanded fight, fire, carnage, and the kind of raw, hysterical passion that smothers stadiums in noise. Jefferson hadn't simply joined a new offense. He had aligned himself with a movement, and that was what terrified the NFL most. Not the yards, not the touchdowns, not the jukes so violent they left DBS questioning their careers. The terror came from the alignment, the fusion of identities, the merging of violence and artistry. Justin Jefferson's finesse was lethal. Dan Campbell's philosophy was unforgiving. Ben Johnson's schemes were unpredictable. And now all three existed in the same offensive ecosystem, breathing the same air, plotting the same ruin. There were already whispers that Detroit staff had spent the previous 48 hours rewriting entire sections of their playbook, creating formations designed to isolate Jefferson in nightmares. Quad stacks, motion traps, hidden releases. We're building something cruel, an anonymous assistant coach allegedly told a reporter off record. Cruel for them, beautiful for us. The trade itself came wrapped in mystery. No one could pinpoint exactly when it began. Some insiders swore it started months earlier, with a quiet phone call between Jefferson and a Lions staffer who had once coached him at a player camp. Others claimed it began with a viral video showing Campbell slamming a chair across a meeting room during a late-season meltdown. A moment that supposedly convinced Jefferson that Detroit wasn't just trying to win, they were trying to conquer. Still others whispered about tensions in Minnesota, contract disputes, creative disagreements, shifting visions. But the truth, the real truth, lives somewhere deeper. Jefferson didn't leave Minnesota because he wanted money or attention. He left because he wanted a legacy, something visceral, something dangerous, something that would echo through decades. And Detroit offered him the one thing no other franchise could, a chance to become the face of a revolution. By midnight, Detroit police had to close multiple intersections around the stadium. Fans held homemade signs. King Jefferson, Detroit's new savior, burn the NFC North. Chants shook the cold air. Car horns blasted into the sky. Videos poured across social media showing grown men sobbing like children, and children screaming like warriors in the city that had lived through more pain, loss, and football trauma than any fan base deserved. Hope didn't just return, it erupted. It caught fire. It became something alive, something loud, something hungry. And yet, The darkest part of the night wasn't what the fans felt, it was what the league felt. Executives from rival teams reportedly texted each other variations of the same 3 words. "We're in trouble." Not because Jefferson was great, everyone already knew that, but because Detroit was ready to weaponize him, ready to unleash him, ready to let him turn Ford Field into a cathedral of offensive destruction. For the first time in decades, defensive coordinators across the NFL didn't sleep, not because they were watching film, but because they were staring at their ceilings. Imagining the terror of facing Justin Jefferson in Honolulu Blue, Detroit wasn't just changing. Detroit was mutating, transforming, ascending. And as the night stretched toward dawn, the city itself seemed to vibrate with a new kind of energy, an energy that whispered a truth no one wanted to say out loud. The Lions were no longer the hunter. With Justin Jefferson, they had become the inevitable. Before we move on, take a second to drop a like and subscribe. That way, you'll stay up to date with every exclusive Lions update, and you'll even have a chance to win an official Detroit Lions jersey. Let's keep going. But the deeper story, the one that would take months to unravel, the one whispered through the lowest corridors of NFL headquarters, didn't begin with ESPN's alert. It began in a room beneath Allen Park that most staffers had never even entered. A room with no windows, dim lights, concrete walls, and a heavy metal door that shut with the finality of a vault. It was there, late on a rainy Thursday, that Campbell reportedly stood in silence in front of a projection screen, showing Jefferson's most devastating routes, the toe drag fades, the corner post hybrids, the hesitation cuts that made corners freeze like prey caught in headlights. No one spoke for several minutes. The only sound came from the soft hum of the projector and the occasional crackle of thunder outside. Then Campbell said something that would haunt the organization in the best possible way. He changes everything. From that moment forward, Detroit moved like a machine possessed. Staffers recalled receiving messages at absurd hours to 6:16 a.m., 3:48 a.m., 4:11 a.m., each containing new film markers, coverage breakdowns, trade scenarios, and tactical rewrites. One assistant reportedly told a friend, "I think Campbell hasn't slept in 40 hours, and he looks happier than ever." Meetings multiplied. Whiteboards filled. Diagrams crawled across walls like vines. Detroit didn't treat Jefferson as a player worth acquiring. They treated him as a tectonic shift, as the earthquake they'd been waiting for, as the variable that would finally tilt the league in their favor. Negotiations with Minnesota were described as cold, surgical, and at times very tense. Minnesota wanted the world. Detroit didn't flinch. Minnesota demanded leverage. Detroit absorbed it. Minnesota pushed. Detroit pushed back harder, and underneath every word, every number, every proposal lurked the same unspoken truth. The Vikings didn't want to send Jefferson to a division rival. They didn't want to deal with the blowback. They didn't want to live with the consequences. But Detroit didn't care what they wanted. Detroit had already decided to tear through walls. To make this happen, rumors leaked of a pivotal moment in negotiations, a moment when Minnesota, feeling leverage slip through their fingers, attempted to drag their feet, stalling, delaying, hesitating, and according to one insider, that was when Detroit sent a message that would shift the entire tone of the talks. 7 words, delivered with terrifying confidence: "We're finishing this tonight." One way or another, executives in Minnesota reportedly went silent. Then the dam broke. Terms were sent, terms were accepted, and a trade destined to redefine the NFL for a generation snapped into reality. Inside the Lions facility, reactions weren't loud, they weren't chaotic, they were reverent. Players who heard the news mid-workout stopped reps mid-set and stared into the distance. Coaches exchanged looks that carried years of struggle and inches of progress. Ben Johnson reportedly whispered something under his breath, something no one caught, but which carried the energy of a man handed a superweapon. Campbell didn't speak to the team immediately. Instead, he walked alone into the empty Ford Field, lights off, only the faint moonlight slicing through the upper decks. He walked to the 50-yard line, put his hands on his hips, and looked up at the rafters as if he could already see Jefferson's future highlights burned into the air. "We're building a monster," he finally said, his voice echoing through the empty stadium, and the league doesn't even know it yet, but they would know quickly. Round the NFL, panic spread with the speed of wildfire. Defensive coordinators across the league held emergency meetings. Coverage schemes were rewritten. Analysts questioned whether the NFC North had just undergone its most dramatic power shift in half a century. fans of rival teams filled comment sections with denial, bargaining, rage, and despair, the 5 stages of grief playing out in real time. Because Jefferson wasn't going to Detroit to supplement the offense, he was going to redefine it. Ben Johnson had already begun designing new concepts around him, concepts with names like Pyre, Ghost Step, Inferno, and Vanish, plays built entirely around Jefferson's ability to manipulate time and space, plays designed not just to fool defenses, but to demoralize them. And the Lions players, they embraced him instantly. Amon-Ra St. Brown reportedly said, "Let's burn the league down." Jared Goff allegedly smiled and told a coach, "You just gave me the keys to a sports car with a jet engine." Even veterans on defense admitted privately that practice reps against Jefferson would be terrifying in the best possible way. Detroit wasn't hiding anymore. They weren't apologizing for success. They weren't hoping for respect. They were taking it with force. And as the first sunrise after the trade broke across the horizon, painting Detroit in a golden glow that felt almost symbolic, one truth became undeniable, not to fans, not to analysts, but to the league itself. Justin Jefferson didn't join the Lions. He ignited them. And the NFL will burn for it. We bring you the latest Lions news every single day. So make sure you're subscribed. Hit that like button and turn on notifications so you don't miss a thing. And of course, drop a comment below with your thoughts on today's news. Your voice makes a difference for Lions Nation. See you in the next video.